Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at John Carter, Warlord of Mars, number 1 through 7, and annual number 1. These were published in 1977 by Marvel Comics Group, and they're also, once again, we're delving into the Andy D'Angelis Memorial Library here at the Academy. This was a special comic for me as far as, my friendship with Andy. By the time I met Andy, he wasn't reading any superhero comics. The only comics he was buying in the late mid-70s were like, if he liked a certain artist, like he liked Mike Kaluta, he'd buy anything with a Kaluta cover, because that's all Kaluta was doing in the mid-70s. Also, a lot of adaptations of fantasy and sci-fi authors. So he had some Conan comics. He had, obviously this is Edgar Rice Burroughs' character, John Carter, because he was a book collector, specializing in science fiction and fantasy. Now, because of that, I was a 9-year-old kid, and all I liked was pretty much superhero comics. And so all the comics I was excited about, Andy didn't even know or care about, except for John Carter. Now, the reason I started buying John Carter was I was at that age where I was like, I want to be a comic collector. Not just I like comics, I want to collect them. So for a few years, any new number 1, I would buy it and start collecting even the comic, even if it wasn't good. It was just this like anal retentive thing to be like, I'm in on the ground floor and now I am collecting this comic. And like, for example, Shogun Warriors, I bought it for 18 months from the first issue. I never liked one issue, but I was just like, this is what I'm collecting now, because I got it on the ground floor. Fortunately, though, sometimes it paid off, like the Micronauts, for example, and John Carter, Warlord of Mars, because these are pretty damn good comics. I eventually sold them just because it's a little... if you read one John Carter, you read them all. In fact, after reading these comics and getting into them, I started reading all the books by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Maybe the main reason was because they had these beautiful Michael Whelan covers, the 70s paperbacks. I read them all, and God, it's like every single one's almost exactly the same. So I eventually sold those too. But, last year I got this box of Andy's comics, and I reread these for the first time since I was a kid. And I gotta say, it was pretty good. It was pretty good stuff, but it's, a good Marvel comic from the 70s, basically. That's what I can say about it. So let's crack these open. There's some really nice stuff in here, actually. And I still don't really regret selling my copies, though. So here we go, number 1. Really just great cover by Gil Kane pencils, Dave Cockrum inks. Pretty just fun stuff. You can imagine, I was like 9 and just seeing this and being like, oh, I'm getting that. So here we go. This comic is written by Marv Wolfman and penciled by Gil Kane and inked by Dave Cockrum, just like the cover. And I gotta say, I really like the combination of Kane and Cockrum. Cockrum seems to have like slicks up Kane a little. Kane is very stylized. Some of his panels could be almost too stylized. We're like, it's a little sketchy or weird. And Dave Cockrum definitely softens the edges and makes it really nice. So this is the Air Pirates of Mars, Chapter 1. This is going to run through the first 10 issues of the comic. Of course, I only have the first 7, and the annual has nothing to do with the normal continuity. So I don't really care. I had no urge to be like, I got to read those last 3 chapters. But it's, I do still like this character of John Carter. Really nice splash page. So basically the story we start off with, John Carter's running through this like kind of dead city. His beloved wife, Deja Thoris, has been kidnapped, and he's trying to find her. I believe also his best friend, Tarkus, is missing. He went looking for Deja, and then he went missing. So he's out there trying to find him. So if you don't know anything about John Carter, he is an Earthman who is, but now on Mars. Due to the lower gravity of Mars, he has super strength there. He can leap like 40 feet. He's super strong. So back to the story. God, some of these panels are just so classic, like Gil Kane's penciling. So basically, we see these green-skinned Martians. They're the Warhoon. There's two kinds of green-skinned Martians. The Warhoon are hostile, and the Tharks, which John Carter's friends Tarkus is part of, they're friendly to they call them the Red Men. Because basically the human-looking characters in Mars have a reddish hue to their skin. So John Carter sees these guys, and he attacks them, the Warhoon. He kicks their asses. God, so many just classic, great, old-style comic book greatness here going on. Thanks to Gil Kane. But also, I really like Dave Cockrum's finishes. So, and then, just like in many mainstream comics, he's still, like, in danger. But he decides to just stop for a second and have a little reminiscence to let us know how he got to Mars. He was a Confederate soldier. One of his buddies was captured by Native Americans. He freed the buddy, and then the Native Americans start chasing him all the way to this cave. He thought he was good as dead, but all of a sudden, the Native Americans turned around in fear and left. They're scared of this cave. John Carter passes out. He wakes up like a naked body looking down at what looks like his own dead body, like he's having an out-of-body experience. He looks up. He's no longer in a cave. He sees Mars, and he basically just flies to Mars. So not much science fiction going on. He doesn't try to explain it scientifically. Just some magic. Somehow magically, John Carter transports to Mars. I kind of like that trippy panel with the zipatone effect in his body. So now back to the present. More Warhoon attack him, of course, because he's standing there, lost in his thoughts. So it's like, not the best time to do that, John Carter. God, look at just how good Gil Kane is with action scenes. This is just a really dynamic page. So John Carter pretty much beats up everyone he meets. He's the strongest guy in the room. Now he decides to reminisce once again about how he first met Deja Thoris. I gotta say, Gil Kane and Dave Cockrum, this combo, that is like one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen drawn in a comic. That's pretty striking. So he talks about when he first met her. They fell totally in love, and eventually they became married. Now back to the actual story. John Carter's still traveling through the city, beating up Warhoon, trying to find Deja. We have a nice little 2-page thing here about John Carter. And this is kind of nice to see. These are all Dave Cockrum concept sketches. I don't know if maybe Dave Cockrum was supposed to pencil the book. Once again, an incredibly sexy Deja Thoris. And so the fighting continues. And now we finally see Deja Thoris and John's friend Tarkus. The Warhoon are slapping Deja around. And they basically want information from her about the atmosphere factories. John shows up and he's furious because they struck his woman, his beloved. So he just wades down there with his sword and just massacres all these Warhoon with some just more great pages of action, of fight choreography. So now he frees his buddies and his love, And we find out from Tarkis that these Warhoon, they were just underlings. There's tyrants above them who want to destroy the atmosphere factories. So basically, Mars is a dying planet at this point. The atmosphere is so weak that they have to prop it up with atmosphere factories. They have to artificially do it. And for some reason, some evil cabal wants to destroy them all, which will destroy all life on Barsoom, which is what they call Mars. Another Kane Cockrum cover. Just classic good Marvel style art. But inside, we now have a new inker. It's Rudy Nebres. So this adds a totally different polish in a totally different way. Rudy Nebres, just an almost like luscious artist, you know. He's just, his stuff is just so beautifully illustrated. And so he adds a lot to Gil Kane. Sometimes I think, though, he covers it up a little too much. He puts a little too much of his own spin on Gil Kane's pencils. I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted that, because Rudy Nebres is much more a fantasy artist, you know, in that traditional sense of, you know, coming from Frazetta and those kind of lush, detailed artists. So we basically continue from where we left off, from the shadow Stara Khan, and now we meet Stara Khan. He's this guy with the little jetpack. He's a typical red-skinned Barsoomian. And John subdues him. He knows he's involved in this plot. And they take him back to Helium. Now, Helium is the capital city of the Red Men. And basically, they're gonna they throw him in jail. We meet Tarkis' daughter, Sola. And see, look how different Deja Thoris looks. It looks like, you know, Rudy Nebres is a Filipino artist. It has that typical, like, Filipino look to the face. So this Staro Khan guy, he faces a trial. He doesn't say a word, so they can't get any information out of him. They're like, throw him in jail. We'll interrogate him tomorrow. But while he's in his jail cell, we realize that he has an artificial robot arm. And he takes it off. There's a hidden blaster in it, so he frees himself. He kills the guard and runs away. Meanwhile, John and Deja are getting reacquainted. Rereading this, it is interesting. Of course, it's not like, you know, NC-17 or anything. It's a typical comic code-approved comic. But it is very clear that John and Deja have a physical, normal adult relationship. They don't show it. But, you know, in most comics, all the heroes were just sexless. And these guys obviously are fucking when the camera pulls away. Meanwhile, we cut back to Staros Khan, and he escapes after, like, leaving some bombs behind or something, like leaving some shit behind. In the morning, John Carter finds out he's escaped. John wakes up Tarkis. We realize these guys are just really good friends. They're all joking around with each other. And they ride off to find this Staros Khan guy. And so they figure the first place they're going to look is the atmosphere factories, since they know that those are under threat. So they actually, when they get to the atmosphere factory, very worrisome. The door is kind of open with no one guarding it. I guess nobody ever even comes in or out of the atmosphere factory. There's just 2 scientists in there or something who run the thing. Seems kind of dumb. There's some weird Gil Kane ink by Nebres ending up looking like bad early Chaykin. It totally looks like before Chaykin really got his chops down. So they are attacked by these white apes, and they have 4 arms, these apes. We're treated to some really good action. And Tara seems to go down under the weight of these apes. John escapes their pummeling. Meanwhile, Deja, who they told to stay behind, she's strong-willed. She's like, fuck that. So she got in a spaceship and followed. Unfortunately, her ship crashes. One of the white apes grabs her. Now she's in peril. But the white apes seem smarter than normal. Something's up with these white apes. In fact, when he grabs Deja, he makes sure to grab her gently, like as if not to hurt her. So now John kicks this white ape who's holding Deja off of this parapet, this giant wall. They both crash to the ground, and John is left unconscious. And Starro Khan now has power over John Carter. We realize also that he's in charge of these white apes. So he's kind of the mastermind. Next we have number 3, very striking cover. Gil Kane solo. And now we see John Carter in a dungeon. Look at this, what Nebrez adds to Gil Kane. This is some lush looking stuff. Pretty nice. So John Carter's stuck in this dungeon thinking about Deja, how much he misses him. He misses her, sorry. We also have some flashbacks here, which we realize, we have flashbacks where Starro Khan is telling the story why he hates John Carter so much. I guess there was a battle a year ago between Starro's people and, the Heliumites. And of course, John Carter was leading the battle for the Helium armies. And he basically ran through Starro right in his arm. And so he had it replaced with this robot arm. Due to this, he was court-martialed, I guess they thought he was being weak in battle or something. And so he escaped, and that's when the Council of Five was formed, he tells us. So they're going to keep referring to this Council of Five. They're the real big baddie of this Air Pirates of Mars story. Starros is just one of their, generals. So now we just see lots of typical, fantasy book stuff. Starro threatening Deja. John Carter saying, if I get out of here, I'm going to kill you so bad for daring to, strike my woman. Marv Wolfman's writing is pretty perfunctory, pretty good. A lot better than the stuff he was writing in the 80s, I think. I was expecting to really slog through this, but it wasn't a horrible read. But it does just get kind of dull. It's just like very typical. It's like all those Conan comics, those hundreds of Conan comics, where it's just like, okay, you're fighting another guy now. So John breaks his chains, but then he's attacked by this giant bantha, which is like an 8-legged kind of jungle cat, like a lion. Very savage, very formidable. And John, using his chains, he strangles the bantha and kills it. He escapes his cell, and he confronts Starro Khan. It's kind of weird, like these villains in all these fantasy books. There's no one in this atmosphere factory, a bunch of white apes. But he made a point to bring like 10 really hot women to just lie around him on his throne. You always see that in like fantasy books and science fiction books. So we find out that John has this collar on his neck, which Starro can activate at any time and fill John with amazing pain. Enough pain to actually kill him if he desires. Guys, look at the inking job here by Nebrez. It's a kind of atypical for a Marvel or DC comic at the time. So basically, he's just zapping John. he basically wants him to kneel down and call him master. Here's another. Look at this interesting inking. But John won't falter, even though he's in incredible pain. We have a letter page here, Barsoomian Chronicles, and I just wanted to point out the first letter is by a young Ted McKeever. And he gives a thumbs up to John Carter. So now John, his willpower is so strong, he's actually fighting through this horrible pain, and it strikes Starikon. You know, Starikon says, I don't need this collar to beat you. With my bionic arm, I can kick your ass. And soon you will belong to the Council of Five. So finally he realizes, no, I can't beat up John Carter with my arm. He's still stronger than me. We see this look of fear on his face. So then he starts zapping him with the collar again, this time almost to the point of death. The whole time he's saying, call me master. I like this body positioning here. And after all this fighting and all this pain, John Carter still wallops him, knocks him out, but then says, for now, Khan, you have won. And then very quietly he says, master. It's like, because he realizes that he knew this the whole time, he's going to have to serve Starikon because he's the only person who knows where Deja Thoris is. But he went through all of this drama, all of this pain, just to basically say, yeah, okay, I'll work for you. But I guess, you know, he's proud. He wanted to still wallop him and then say, okay. But it's kind of a weird, interesting scene. Once again, just some of these Gil Kane panels I just love. This is a very interesting, what could have been a Barsoomian portfolio by Alex Nino. And apparently there was going to be an Alex Nino John Carter project. Maybe actually adapting the books. And we just get a tantalizing glimpse of Alex Nino's version. I wonder if any more of these pages exist somewhere. I've never heard about it anywhere else. Very interesting. Next we have number 4. God, all of these covers are burned into my memory. Because, you know, back then we had 4 channels of TV. We didn't have the internet, so I would reread my comics all the time. Maybe once a week I'd read these John Carters. So all these cover images are just burned into my cranium. This is a Gil Kane and Pablo Marcus collaboration here on the cover, but inside it's still Rudy Nebres inking Gil Kane. See, typical, very Filipino face. Everyone's a little chubby, and they have weak jaw lines. You can always tell a Filipino artist by the faces. So now basically, John Carter is now basically a slave. He goes on these raiding parties with Starikon and his air pirates. And they just basically attack all these small cities and outposts on Mars. Plundering, pillaging. John Carter tries to not hurt anyone, but he's in the forefront always. And basically in every city, you know, he's like, he makes John like steal the big treasure in that city. So basically what Starikon is doing is ruining John Carter's reputation. That's part of this thing. He always makes him in front of all the people they're conquering. He acts like John Carter's his leader. He's like, yeah, boss. Oh, look at this typical Gil Kane head scene. So, of course, look at the look on his face there. That's a really good emotive drawing there. He's just so beaten down by all the shitty things he has to do just because he wants to find Deja so bad. You know, these comics aren't that thrilling to me. The craft in these are really great. So much of this comic is just about how much John Carter loves Deja Thoris. Almost 3 times an issue. He's always just like, oh, God, I love that woman. She's the best. Now we go back to Helium. We meet Deja Thoris' grandfather, who's like the Grand Jedak. He's like the head honcho. We also meet her father, who's like a vice president honcho, a vice honcho. And we also meet Kantos Khan, John Carter's best friend, after Tars Tarkas. And they're all talking about what to do. People are starting to hear these rumors that John Carter has become a traitor. And also the rumors are that he kidnapped Deja Thoris himself. So his reputation is completely besmirched. And he's still no closer to finding Deja Thoris. Meanwhile, we see Tars Tarkas. Remember last we saw him, there was white apes were pummeling him to death. John Carter assumed he was dead. Apparently he's not dead, but he's stuck in this desert and he's dying of thirst. God, so many ads in these mid-70s Marvel comics. So now back to the air pirates. They're raiding another city. And this one city they get to, it seems abandoned. Then they finally see a woman who seems as if she's in a daze, because there's this weird, like, humming music permeating the city, like this rhythmic, weird music. It's almost hypnotic. It actually is hypnotic. They round a corner. They see all the other people in the city being drawn to this temple, snake temple. And John Carter realizes what's happening is that they're all being drawn to this pit where this dragon can eat their souls, basically. John jumps to the edge of this parapet here, this gangplank. He doesn't want these people to die. Also, Stara Khan has fallen under the hypnotic sway, and he's going to jump into his mouth. So he's in this horrible position of having to protect his greatest enemy, because if Stara Khan dies, he'll never find out where Deja is. I gotta say, I love the design of this dragon. Really amazing. Really cool design. So the people, like, push John Carter in. There's just so many of them, he can't, it's like a tide. And the alien is from another planet. Hey, he seems very intelligent, and he's and telepathic, and he's telling John Carter, I know you're from another planet too. I'm going to basically take your strength, and maybe I can leave this planet. I need more strength. Meanwhile, all these people are falling into the pit. John Carter realizes he has to kill this dragon, or this alien, or he's going to kill all these people, including Stara Khan. So he does. He kills the dragon. And then the air pirates fly off, once again, to attack another city. Next, we have number 5. This is another Gil Kane, Pablo Marcus cover. Pablo Marcus lets Gil Kane come through a lot more, but he still definitely, adds a lot of himself. Now, once again inside, it's still Marv Wolfman, Gil Kane, and Rudy Nebres. And one shall die. So here we say Kantor Khan, John Carter's buddy. He's the only one defending John Carter at this tavern in Helium. Everyone else is all like, oh, shut the fuck up. He kidnapped Deja Thoris. And so they start, picking on him, and they start beating him up. But then I guess Kantos Khan has this friend named Grog, who's this giant mountain of a man. So he starts beating up the guys who are beating up his friend, turns into a big brawl. And finally, Deja Thoris' father, the Jed of Helium, you remember the vice president, he shows up and says, guys, I don't know who kidnapped Deja Thoris, but the fact is she's kidnapped. So I'm basically rounding up people. We're going to go find her. If it's John Carter, we'll kill him. Whoever took her, they're dead. Of course, all these guys love their princess. And they're all like, yes, for Dejah Thoris, for Barsoom. I don't know why they didn't do this like, I don't know, weeks ago. They know that the atmosphere factories are under, siege. That seems, you'd think they would have ran right out to, seize them back. So now once again we see John Carter still having to be a puppet of Starro Khan and attack poor innocent people and steal their treasures. I usually really like Rudy Nebrez's art, but I don't like how overpowering it is over Gil Kane in this comic. Sometimes it does add a lot, though. Some certain panels look pretty cool, but it's just a little too much. So now John Carter has gotten his own little ship, and he's once again heading out to find Dejah Thoris, where he thinks she might be. And he falls into this giant spider web. Once again, another great design here of this alien spider. Pretty cool looking. And then, let me see if I skipped a page here. Oh, no. So he doesn't kill the spider, but he just escapes. He's like, enough of this shit. I don't got time to fight this spider. And now he finds Starro Khan talking to his Warhoon allies. There's also some Red Men allies there too. John bursts into the room, attacking all these guys. Once again, Starro uses his shock collar on John Carter. Here's some more Gil Kane heads, but look at the illustration that Rudy Nebrez adds to it. Pretty nice. Even though I was just saying how sometimes it's overpowering, and it is overpowering here, but yeah, it's Rudy Nebrez. So now, once again, John and Starro have a fight. A really dynamic, well-choreographed fight. And finally, John and Starro are in like there's a gun in between them. The gun goes off, and it kills Starro Khan. So that's it for him. But he laughs maniacally because he says, I've won. You may have killed me, but only I know where Dejah Thoris is hidden. He dies laughing. Number 6. We have a Gil Kane Rudy Nebrez cover. And we have this weird looking little baby that John Carter's holding. So now John Carter has escaped the air pirates, obviously, since he's killed Starro Khan. Oh, I should mention, guest inker this issue, Rudy Messina. That's not a good thing. This guy's, I've never seen him before. But I have a feeling he's another Filipino cartoonist. And he's not very good. There's some really ugly panels in this comic. So John Carter returns to Helium after all this. This is what I'm talking about here. Look at that face. Sometimes though, Gil Kane just comes through. It's interesting just how great the dragon looked, that alien looked in the last issue, or 2 issues ago. And then when Messina inks him, he looks like that. He looks like a dumb cartoon character. So we have a little flashback. And now John has made it to Helium. Meanwhile, the war party that left Helium, to go find Dejah, they find Tars Tarkas in the desert. So he's rested. He's saved. Of course, he says John Carter did not kidnap Dejah Thoris. I was there. And but back in Helium, nobody believes it. Everyone thinks that he's responsible. There's also these like strange hooded guys who are egging on the crowd, making them be like spreading these rumors, fanning the flames of anti-John Carter hysteria, So John's running through the city. He's a little confused. He's like, where's the leaders, the Jednak, Deja's father and grandfather? But then he's really confused when he finally sees some people in the city, and almost all of them attack John Carter. They're all anti-John Carter. Look at that weird face there. Gil Kane was probably so pissed off. And now John Carter's got to fight all these helium citizens. Some of these panels are really well illustrated. Well inked. And then some are just like crude as like a fanzine artist, from the 70s or something. It's very strange. Maybe he didn't have a lot of time since he was the guest inker. So John's got to fight his way through the city. Everywhere he goes, people are attacking him. We see these hooded guys plotting to capture him. Hold on a second. There was an ad for these paperbacks of John Carter, and I was wondering if they were the Michael Whalen ones that I had. So of course John Carter's a hero. So I guess these these kind of horse-like creatures on Mars, I can't remember their name. They break out of their stable like on a mad rampage, stampeding people in the streets, killing hundreds. So John Carter, even though he's on the run, he can't stop, saving a woman who's in the path of these creatures. But then he realizes John Carter has telepathic powers, especially over lower creatures, and they won't listen to him. They're not responding. He realizes that they're under mind control, and they're all heading for the incubation chambers of helium. Now, I guess in Mars, Martian women lay eggs, and they incubate for 5 years, and then a new generation of babies is born. So all of these equine creatures are heading. They're going to basically destroy the next generation of Martians. John knows he has to stop them. He leaps off the first one and just basically tries to throw them all out of the way. Of course, he can't stop this. It's like stopping the ocean. It's a full-on stampede. Look at this weird inking going on here for these creatures. Oh, they're all wearing eyeliner or something. So John cannot stop them. They're crashing through this incubation chamber, but he does shove some of the little incubators out of the way. So he actually rescues most of these little babies who hatch a little early due to the vibrations. Oh God, look at that. That's some bad stuff there. Now he comes out. One of the babies holding is passed out. They think he's dead. So they're like, John Carter, you did this. They blame the whole thing on him, even though he tried to rescue all these babies. And they basically pummel him. He's already weak from fighting all these creatures, and they pummel him into unconsciousness. Now we have number 7, another, I assume Gil Kane, Rudy Nebres cover, or maybe this is just Rudy Nebres. No, I think it's Gil Kane, Rudy Nebres. It sure looks like it. And now we have a new inker, Tom Sutton. Now Tom Sutton, it's interesting when he inks, it's not like, oh, it looks like Tom Sutton, because Tom Sutton has a very distinctive style. In the early 70s, he was inking other people's work. He did some Conans, I believe, over Barry Windsor Smith even, and they looked very different, but also very different than Tom Sutton's art. So this is the same thing. Tom Sutton really lets Gil Kane's pencils come out a lot more, but it's also, simplified, pretty simple. So keep that in mind. So now John Carter has been, taken to a hospital. I guess the people in power realize that John Carter probably isn't the bad guy, so they're trying to heal him. And of course, the whole time he's saying, Deja, I must find Deja. Now we see where Deja is. Deja is basically she's a guest of this castle. She's a captive, but they they know she's royalty, so they treat her for the most part good, except for this one woman. She's like the main concubine of the leader, and she's very jealous of Deja, so she's constantly slapping her, fucking with her. But this one captain of the guard, he basically defends Deja Thoris, and Deja knows of him. He was from Helium. She kind of butters him up. She says, "Oh, my father always said you were a great warrior, but then, he fucked up. He was banished from Helium, so he joined the Council of Five." We also realize the Council of Five it's called that because it's the green, the red, the white, the black, and the yellow. The black and the yellow were just mythical races to most people, but I guess they're hiding somewhere. So we'll find out a little bit more about the Council of Five. At this little banquet, that jealous woman spills hot soup on Deja Thoris. She goes to take a bath to wash off, and the captain is just watching her in her bath naked the whole time. So I think Deja's playing this up. Deja's trying to seduce him, basically, and win him over. Now, Deja really lays it on thick and is like, "Oh, aren't you going to come to my chambers?" And then the guy realizes that she's, pressing him for information. He's like, "You're trying to use me just like all women." Turns out he's this total bitter guy doesn't like women very much. And he's like, "I'll show you that I'm a real man." And he forces himself on her. But she grabs his knife and stabs him. We realize Deja's pretty kick-ass. She's just like, "Let me show you why no slimy devil will ever lay a hand on the Princess of Helium and live." So she grabs a gun and makes her escape. Some guys try to stop her. She kills them. Look at this interesting inking here. I would never guess that was like Tom Sutton. He doesn't ink himself that way. Very interesting panel. Yeah, Tom Sutton's very loose, too, when he inks other people. Some of the stuff is really sketchy and loose. God, Deja's outfit for, 70s Marvel, this is, really revealing. I'm surprised the Comics Code didn't censor it. So Deja finally finds an airship, and she escapes the city. She actually hides out in this ship. These two guys are piloting, the two of the Council of Five, the bad guys, and they begin their attack on the Atmosphere Factory. They're just going to destroy the whole thing. I don't even understand why they were in control of it for weeks. Why didn't they just blow it up? But no, they're doing this whole airstrike on it. That's right then. The war party from Helium shows up. So they're trying to stop these guys from blowing up the Atmosphere Factory. And then Deja gets control of her ship. She conks out the two pilots. And she starts fighting the other airships from the Council of Five. Of course, the Heliumites are like, "Wait, why is that ship attacking their own guys?" And then Deja lets herself be known. They realize it's Deja. Everyone fights on with renewed vigor, knowing that Deja Thoris is now safe. And they stop the Atmosphere Factory from being completely destroyed. It's damaged, but not destroyed. Looks like Ernie Colon popped in for a second here. And then I forgot to mention, too, the Council of Five, their big plan is that Mars doesn't have enough atmosphere or resources for the population. So they want to blow up the Atmosphere Factory so that most people die. The Council of Five all have air masks. That's why Deja is doing okay. She took one of the air masks. And they were going to let most people die, and then their chosen few that set up a new Atmosphere Factory and survive. Almost like the Thanos thing in the Avengers movies. So now back to Helium. Word gets to John Carter that Dejah Thoris has been found and that she's fighting bravely against the Council of Five. Even though John Carter still needs to recuperate, he's all like, oh, fuck that. I've got to go. And for some reason, he takes his little pet, this little creature, a cowlet. His name's Woola. Just look how goofy he looks. So John Carter arrives on the scene. He's so impatient, he just jumps out of his plane, his airship, and starts attacking the Council of Five. Puts on one of the air masks. I like this, just little examples in Marvel Comics, you know, the Marvel method, when writers have to correct something the artist fucked up. Because he says, I took 2 of the air breathers, one for Woola, who suddenly appeared at my side, though how he came to be there instead of inside my flying cruiser, I still do not know. Because there is no reason, but the artist just didn't realize, you know, he doesn't show how this little creature got down off this flying plane. So now John and Dejah fight together against the Council of Five, and they win. And they stop the destruction of the Atmosphere Factory. And after all these issues, they embrace. John Carter, he's the narrator of all of these, actually. Almost all the captions are from John Carter's point of view. And he says, after weeks of being apart from her, I kissed her as I never have before. Maybe he used tongue for the first time. And they walk off into the sunset. This is kind of an ending, even though it's not. There's still 3 more chapters of Air Pirates where he actually has to take down the leaders of the Council of Five. But to be honest, I really don't care if I ever read those to the day I die. But it was kind of fun looking at these again, I gotta say. So now let's get to the annual number 1. Now this is a standalone story. We got a cover here by Rudy Nebres. I should have looked this up, guys. Maybe it's penciled by someone else, but it's obviously very Rudy Nebres. So this is once again written by Marv Wolfman, and penciled by Sal Buscema, and inked by Ernie Chan, which I thought was interesting, because Ernie Chan has been inking Sal's brother John for like a decade. But for once, Sal gets the Ernie Chan treatment, which basically means this looks nothing like Sal Buscema. It's Ernie Chan totally subsumes his pencils. This is called When Walks the Ancient Dead. We see John Carter just wants to get away. He's flying around just to collect his thoughts. He's in this little flyer, and he comes to this abandoned city. But it's not totally abandoned because he sees this blonde, white-skinned guy surrounded by like 8 Warhoon, the Green Martians. He doesn't like the odds, so he joins in, leaps out of his flyer. See, look at this very classic art, you know, Sal Buscema, but inked by Ernie Chan. So it looks better than Sal Buscema normally. So every now and then Sal Buscema peeks through, but for the most part, it's a very Ernie Chan. So John Carter wades into the battle. Of course, he starts kicking ass like he always does. He's chatting with this guy, the blonde guy. And he mentions that, he says, I'm not even a warrior, I'm a scholar, you know, I'm a historian. And but they fight together, and they eventually kill all the Warhoon. Even the 2 who are trying to escape, John kills them. So he says, thank you for saving me. And I guess he was out there in the middle of nowhere because, you know, he's a scholar. He's a scientist. He was looking at some old ruins. His name's Pandan Chi. I'll just call him Dan. So then when he takes them back, it turns out the city's not abandoned. All of his fellow countrymen come out of hiding. And then they grab John Carter. And even Pandan Chi, who's very grateful for having his life saved, says, regretfully, you must be slain now. So John Carter allows himself to be taken to the ruler. He just wants to find out what the hell's going on. Meanwhile, Pandan Chi keeps talking about all of these old rulers of this city, especially Princess Solara, who he seems to be in love with, even though she's 1,000,000 years dead. So now the king explains to John Carter why they have this rule. This civilization has been around since back when Mars had oceans and was a vital planet. They ruled the planet fairly. They didn't rule the planet, but they were secure. Their civilization thrived. There was abundance. No one starved. But then eventually, their civilization is so old, the climate changed, the oceans dried up, famine came to the land, people started warring over resources, and then the green Martians started picking them off because they were many and the people of this city were few. So basically they have this policy that the only way they can protect themselves is just to hide. So everyone who comes to their city must be slain because they can't afford for them to escape or leave and tell people that they're there. John Carter, of course, doesn't like this policy, but they're like, you don't understand. There's no malice behind this. This isn't justice. This is just survival. This is what we must do. And I'm very sorry, but we have to kill you. He does say that Dan tries to convince him. He says, listen, couldn't we just have it so he never leaves the city? He'll be exiled here, so then he can never tell anyone. So the ruler says, I'll think about it overnight. And they're both put in a dungeon. I guess Dan is an accomplice since he brought him to the city. And there's all these more ancient statues of these great elders, who have this great civilization. Dan shows John some of these embalmed ancients, and then they're attacked by Martian rats, the Ulcios. Now, these are way bigger than normal Ulcios, so they're just savage, nasty creatures. And John kills one, once again saves Dan's life because he's getting chewed on by these rats, these Ulcios, and he kills them. So once again, he owes them his life. Now he shows him this almost like petrified old leader, 1,000,000-year-old leader of this city, Horkailan. He was the greatest of Jedaks. That's what they call chieftains in Mars, Jedak. John borrows his sword, or just takes his sword, because he's long dead. And then he hears a sound. And basically, apparently, there's an escape from this tunnel that would lead to John's freedom. And even though Dan thinks that John's the best guy ever, and he's totally like, oh, we're friends, but he's like, I can't let you leave. That goes against our rules, the laws of my society. I'm going to have to fight you. Now, John, this would just be a slaughter. John knows that he'll kill him very quickly. Dan knows that he has no chance. But he's just a noble guy who's like, I must try to stop you because I am a citizen of the city and I obey its laws. So John disarms him, says, I refuse to kill you. I refuse to kill a friend. Maybe we can work this out together. Now they hear another sound. They knock down this door, and there's this crazy old man who looks like he's 300 years old. And he's kind of ranting, and he's kind of a loony. Now, he gives them some water, but the water's drugged. This is kind of the best of both worlds, because I always like Sal Buscema's layouts. They're just very simple, good storytelling. Sal Buscema's kind of known for that. But his art just kind of looked So we're getting the nice, good layouts, but with a nice Ernie Chan finish to it. I like this panel from John Carter's point of view as he's starting to feel the effects of this drug. So they, Dan and John pass out. And John wakes up, and it looks like the old man is like getting ready to embalm Dan. So he shakes off the effects of the poison, and he throws the old man against a pillar. But then right then, that old Jedak, Horkai Lan, he awakens. And it looks like all of these guys awaken from 1,000,000 years ago. And more importantly to Dan, Solara awakens, and he is just like he was in love with her statues for years. He's like, oh my God, she's so much more lovely than the statues made her to be. I gotta say, that's pretty hot. That looks like Milo Manera hot right there. And you know, she treats him like a slave. She's like, bow down so I can step out of my coffin on top of you. But she says, I do need a personal servant, so whatever. Meanwhile, the Jedak guy is kind of arguing with John Carter. John Carter's basically trying to tell him, he's like, you guys have, like, the Jedak thinks they've been asleep for 20 years, that the old man put a spell on him. And John Carter's like, no, you've been asleep for 1,000,000 years. Of course, he's like, you lie. And John Carter says, let me prove it to you. And they open this door, and all the oceans have dried up. When last he walked the earth, there was oceans there. But then it's almost like John starts hallucinating and actually sees an ocean where the desert should be. He even sees these warships. When he turns around, the city is not crumbling. It's the buildings look as new as the day they were built. And he doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's freaking out. Meanwhile, Dan and Solara are getting to know each other. Sorry, back to John Carter. The illusion of the ocean disappears. It's sand again. And so John doesn't want to fight these guys, so he just leaps away. But eventually they catch up to him. But now, once again, the hallucination comes back. And now there's a pirate ship here on the ocean. John jumps onto it, and all these cutthroats come out to kill him. Meanwhile, we see Dan and Solara getting acquainted, and Solara actually falls in love with him back. Back to John and his fighting. Once again, turns back to normal. No more ocean. And he finally proves to the Jedak guy, he says, do you see? It's been 1,000,000 years, I told you. Look, your city's crumbling. Meanwhile, Solara feels like she has to leave. She says, I'm being called away. I'm being taken back to my time. I cannot stop it. So, Harkai Lan basically says, we do not belong here. Take us, O God. Take us back to our world. The old Barsoom of life. And so a giant wave, which is probably a hallucination, comes out of nowhere and sweeps everyone away. John holds onto this pillar so he's not swept away. And when the water subsides, it's just skeletons. And when John rounds the corner, he sees a skeleton of Solara and Pandan Chi. So even though he's not from the past, he gets to go back. So in a way, he gets to live in this, like, you know, great past, almost heavenly life. And then John Carter walks home. We have a nice pinup here by Rudy Nebres. It's basically an ad for John Carter, the monthly. Look at this almost Kelly Jones-like bizarro rib cage. It looks like he has the mumps. Very strange. But man, look at that gorgeous Stegosaurus. Yeah, Rudy Nebres has a lot of good qualities, I gotta say. So there you go, guys. John Carter, Warlord of Mars, 1 through 7, and annual number 1 from the Andy D'Angelis Memorial Library. Hope you guys enjoyed looking at that with me. It was quite nostalgic for me. I never even thought I'd read these comics ever again. I probably never would have if I didn't get the box in the mail of all this stuff. So I hope you liked looking at it, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.